These days, no one is surprised by a CAPTCHA that unexpectedly pops up on our monitor's screen when trying to log in to another website. But did you know that the word CAPTCHA is an acronym that stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to Tell Computers and Humans Apart? As you might have guessed, today's talk will be about the great creator of this test. In our modern world, rapidly developing in the field of computer and information technologies, the demand to study the biography of Alan Turing as a person who stood at the origins of these most important branches of science has incredibly increased. In today's episode, you will learn about the story of an eccentric who became a recognized genius, about the first computing machines he created, and how a scientist who with his brilliant mind made a colossal contribution to Britain's victory over the Third Reich became a persecuted criminal. This is the Epochicons channel. Subscribe, like, ring the bell, and support us with your donations. This will help us release new videos more often. All links are in the description. Part 1. The Childhood of a Future Genius. Alan Turing was born in a well-off family of a British civil servant, Julius Matheson Turing, who worked in the Indian Civil Service in India. The parents did not take young Alan with them on their trips to India, as a result of which he was raised away from the family and his early years were spent in various boarding schools in Great Britain. His teachers noticed that he possessed outstanding abilities in mathematics from the age of 8. However, some teachers considered him undisciplined due to his tendency to ignore subjects that did not interest him. After finishing primary school, Turing entered one of the most prestigious schools in Great Britain, located in Sherborne. His educational experience there was also ambivalent, since the main emphasis in Sherborne was exclusively on the humanities, such as Latin and Greek languages. Thank goodness, there was a wise teacher named John Robertson who managed to see the incredible talent of the boy in the exact sciences. From that moment, Turing no longer worked in any other direction. His talent, like a beam of sunlight passing through a prism, focused on the subject that would become the passion of his entire life, mathematics. While studying under Robertson, Alan began to exceed the simple school curriculum significantly. His mind, like a knowledge-hungry predator, constantly demanded new information. As a teenager at the age of 15, Turing loved to read popular science articles dedicated to Einstein's theory of relativity. He found that the interpretations in various magazines significantly differed. This piqued his curiosity, and he began to read the original works of the German scientist to gain the best understanding of the subject. Knowing only elementary courses of Newtonian physics, which were taught to boys of his age at school, Turing was able to independently master the necessary mathematics to understand the theory of relativity. He not just learned through its study, but drew his own conclusions from its fundamental principles and tried to prove them. I think few of the viewers of this video, looking at what Alan Turing was engaged in at such an age, recognize themselves in him. After all, it's the time of puberty. Who cares about the theory of relativity at that age? However, do not be too quick to exclude the young genius from your ranks. Apart from Einstein's works, Alan at that age was in love, just like most of you. His first object of romantic affection was a classmate by the name of Christopher Morcom. Turing felt such strong feelings for him that, reminiscing, he wrote with admiration, "I am enchanted by him. I am ready to kiss the ground he walked on." For their age, it seemed impossible to share common interests in mathematics without developing feelings for each other. It was the first love, which Alan himself considered one of many attachments to his own gender. Unfortunately for Alan, his relationship with Christopher was short-lived and ended sadly. Suffering from tuberculosis from an early age, Christopher passed away in 1927 at the age of 18. For Turing, this was a serious moral blow. "Poor old Turing could not recover from the shock," wrote his school friend from Sherborne, Matthew Blame, the day after the death. They must have been good friends. The grief from the loss of Christopher spurred many of Turing's reflections on the nature of the mind, the soul, and the machine, which only gave our hero additional motivation for his future brilliant discoveries. Part 2. The Dream of Academia. Having brilliantly passed his final exam, Alan applied to one of the most respected educational institutions in England, King's College, Cambridge, in 1931. There was no other option but to accept such a talented young man into the ranks of the Department of Mathematics, as you can understand. Turing, despite his shyness, managed to attract the attention of the faculty. One story says that one of Turing's lecturers in Cambridge, Max Newman, noting his potential, allegedly said that Turing would become either the greatest mathematician of his time or the greatest failure because he worked and thought completely differently than his peers. His unconventional worldview is well illustrated by the following incident. Turing often rode a bicycle. His bicycle chain was broken, causing it to come off every several pedal revolutions. Instead of repairing it, Turing simply counted the number of pedal turns needed for the chain to come off and would stop each time to put the chain back on the sprocket. Finding himself in an environment of like-minded people, Alan Turing did not waste any time in vain. His energy was sufficient for everything. He managed to run in the mornings, attend training, and study a vast amount of scientific literature. In 1934, he graduated from university with first-class honors. However, his passion for scientific research did not allow him to rest on his laurels. In 1934, Turing became a graduate student at Cambridge and managed to obtain a scholarship to conduct research that had long interested him in the field of mathematics and algorithms. He conducted research crucial to the future of computer science. In 1936, he published his revolutionary paper on computable numbers with an application to the Epochicons problem. In this paper, Turing introduced the concept of Turing machines, abstract computing devices capable of simulating any algorithm. He proved that there are problems that cannot be solved by these machines, thereby addressing the Epochicons problem posed by the German mathematician David Hilbert. For all of computer science, this work became fundamental. Let us all together understand why. But first, let's see how a Turing machine works. It consists of an infinitely long tape divided into cells, each of which can contain a symbol from some finite alphabet, a read-write head that can move along the tape, and a control device that can be in one of a finite number of states. Depending on the symbol that the head reads from the tape and the state that the control device is in, the machine can write a new symbol in the cell, replacing the old one, move the head one cell to the left or right, transition to a different state, or remain in the same one. Stop. The Turing machine is considered the foundation for defining algorithmic computability. It allows for a formalization of the concept of an algorithm, that is, an exact sequence of actions to be performed. Surely, you understood none of that. But to make you realize the magnitude of importance of this discovery, consider the following. Turing's theorem has enormous importance for computer science as it defines the fundamental principles of computability and establishes the Turing machine as a universal model of computation. This concept underlies the development of programming languages, separates problems into computable and non-computable, and contributes to the formation of the theory of computational complexity, which has become foundational for the optimization of algorithms and the development of the fields of artificial intelligence and machine learning, thus defining the boundaries of what is possible in the field of computer sciences. Without this fundamental theory in place to this day, you might not have been able to watch this video. Following his research at Cambridge, Turing continued his scientific work at Princeton University in the United States, where he studied under Professor Alonzo Church, who also had made significant contributions to the development of the theory of computation. Returning to the United Kingdom in 1938, Turing began working at the Government Code and Ciphers School at Bletchley Park, the center of British cryptography. Thanks to his work at Bletchley, millions of lives would be saved. Part 3. The Imitation Game. Nowadays, Bletchley Park is a museum open to the public. Anyone can come and view the exhibits set up to tell the story of what happened here almost a century ago. However, when Turing was in the process of being employed here, none of the local residents in the vicinity knew what was going on in Bletchley. But the work there was in full swing. The British military command had gathered the best scientific mathematicians from across the country to solve what they considered to be the most crucial task. The scientists, led by Alan Turing, had to solve a puzzle that literally depended on the fate of the existence of the British state, which at the time was under threat of invasion by Hitler's army. Meet Enigma, the machine used by the German military and political leadership throughout World War II to encrypt transmitted messages. It was the reason why dozens of British scientists ended up under one roof. The groundwork for the crack had already been laid by a country already suffering from Hitler's invasion. Polish intelligence for its time was quite advanced. From the moment Hitler took control of Germany, they immediately became interested in the possibility of cracking German codes. For this task, Polish mathematicians, cryptologists Marian Rejewski, Jerzy Rodziski, and Henryk Zygalski were invited. We won't bore you with the complicated technical details of how the Enigma works. After all, you're on a historical YouTube channel. Let's just say that Polish mathematicians did a great deal of work and managed to create a prototype device for decryption. It was called the cryptologic bomb and was a complex electromechanical device capable of picking the right combinations for decryption. With the outbreak of World War I, Polish mathematicians were able to share their developments with their British colleagues. Alan Turing, driven by the idea of creating an automatic device capable of calculating millions of possible combinations, fully utilized the work of his Polish friends. It could be considered one of the prototypes of the modern computer, despite being the size of a huge cupboard. This thing was called the bomb. Each British bomb could go through a vast number of combination settings of the Enigma. However, the precise number of possible combinations that the bomb could calculate depended on many factors, including the specific variant of the Enigma being cracked, since there were several versions, each with their features. Let's just say that the number of possible combinations ranged up to millions. By creating such a machine, Turing to some extent protected Britain without using any weapons. The intelligence data obtained as a result of decryption gave the Allies a critical advantage, allowing them to anticipate and effectively counteract German military operations, which was particularly evident in strengthening maritime security in the Atlantic and in successful planning of operations, including the Normandy landings. Until the very end of the war, German command used the Enigma, confident that their messages were securely protected. Part 4. Turing's Apple. The work at Bletchley was secret, and after the war, all the developments were destroyed. All the project participants, including Alan, signed non-disclosure agreements. But you must understand that governments do not like when someone knows too much about what should remain a secret. Turing was no exception, even with the start of the Cold War and the Iron Curtain. It would have been absolutely unreasonable not to continue to use such a brilliant mind in the fight against a new formidable opponent. However, after the war, Turing abandoned his decoding activities and focused all his energy on developing some of the first computers. His post-war works and research in this field became the precursors to the modern artificial intelligence that you are now listening to this recording through. By refusing to work on decrypting Soviet codes, it can be said that Turing deprived himself of immunity from prosecution by the British justice system. At that time, in Britain, there were homophobic laws, according to which men caught in what was called gross indecency had to undergo either prison or chemical castration, i.e., compulsory hormonal therapy. Alan Turing was convicted of homosexual relations after he himself reported a burglary at his home in January 1952. During the investigation, he mentioned that the perpetrator might be acquainted with his lover, Arnold Murray. The police began an investigation related to a possible burglary, but as the investigation proceeded, it soon became clear that the police interest had shifted to Turing's personal life. Turing and Murray were successively interrogated, and Turing openly admitted to his homosexual relations with Murray. Choosing between two forms of punishment, Turing opted for chemical castration. Dear men listening to this, do not take this to heart. The events severely undermined his once athletic health. Due to the course of hormonal drugs, he gained weight, developed gynecomastia, and he lost interest in science. In 1954, Alan Turing was found dead. The official cause of his death is considered suicide. Presumably, the scientist poisoned himself with cyanide, but there are many other versions, from murder to an accident. Next to his body was found a half-eaten apple, which became as legendary as the biblical forbidden fruit or the apple that fell on Newton's head. Alan Turing's crucial contribution to the saving of millions of human lives remained a secret until the 1970s. In 2009, the British government acknowledged that the persecution of the scientist was a mistake and posthumously apologized to him. And in 2013, Queen Elizabeth II officially granted him a royal pardon. Being both a hero and an inconvenient witness, Alan Turing stands in line with such prominent scientists of his time as Robert Oppenheimer, Ludwig Wittgenstein, Rosalind Franklin, John Nash. These individuals faced criticism, misunderstanding, and condemnation, be it social, political, or professional, but continued to rock the boat of conventional beliefs, provoking questions to which society was not yet ready to answer.